Hello, everybody. All right, welcome. Today is Thursday, July the 17th, 2025. Of course, we're going to give people a chance to come in before we get started here. Hopefully, everybody's had a good week thus far as we're now in the latter part of the week here. I'm going to just do some real quick here. Just something I kind of didn't get a chance to do before. Oh, anyways, hopefully everybody, as I said, hopefully everybody's having a good week this week. I just started watching the cartoons from January 1939, so I'm into 1939 now in terms of my classical cartoon watching. Oh wait, um, and among those included, of course, the Lone Stranger in Porky was one of them. Also saw also had a chance to watch another Chevrolet animated commercial, and there was another kind of commercial that Walt Disney did for Standard Oil parade of the Standard Parade. So that one was pretty interesting with pretty much partially live action, kind of part live action docudrama, documentary, part animated. So oh, anyways, let's see. So now we're at 2:34. So just a few more seconds, and we'll talk about what's on tap for tonight. Um, huh. All right. So now we're at the 3 minute mark. So tonight we'll be talking a bit about. So I do have an article I'm going to go over from MeTV Tunes. Pretty interesting article too. I guess talking about why the Smurfs are blue. So we do that. We have the wrestling wrap up, getting caught up on last night's AEW Dynamite. In the fallout from the All In pay per view, as well as of course Supercard of Honor. Some look ahead to tonight's TNA as tonight will be TNA's Go Home Impact episode before this Sunday's Slammiversary. As well as looking ahead to tonight's Ring of Honor. And then we'll wrap things up with this day in each history. So with all that being said, why don't we go ahead and get started, Ben? We go ahead and pull up the article here. All right. So here we go. Here's the article we're doing tonight. At long last, and a friendly reminder, of course, before we do get started on the article here, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. That'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I will try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So with that being said, at long last, this is the reason why the Smurfs are blue. Quote, Making them all different colors would have given them nothing more than superficial identities, quote unquote. I guess, creating an entire species where you can differentiate them from their names and from the personalities that come with it, like Papa, Brainy, Smurfette, Hefty, Handy, Greedy. That works, and we all know that works. Article published earlier today by MeTV Toon staff. All right, so here we go. And again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the screen. See if we get some more friendly people to engage. I'd be appreciated. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions, and I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, would the Smurfs be compelling if they weren't blue? Sure, they're tiny, lovable, and mischievous, but would those qualities be as endearing to viewers everywhere if a typical Smurf were red, yellow, or green? Now, mind you, they did have an episode where they had a plague that made them very violent and vicious, that turned them from blue to purple. So, was that episode? Luckily, we'll never have to know the truth because the Smurfs have been and always will be a beautiful blue color. But what if we told you that it was actually merely happenstance that these tiny little creatures got their signature hue? The Smurfs were originally created by Pierre Colliford, better known as Peyo. In addition to the Smurfs, the Belgian comic artist also created the series Johan and Pee-wee. And as we discussed in another article that was featured on here, Johan and Pee-wee were actually, the Smurfs were actually a supporting characters of Johan and Pee-wee. And the thing else. All right, so that's all right. So, anyways, Peyo may have created the Smurfs, but according to an article for Time magazine, their blue color was decided by his wife, Nina Culliford, who apparently chose it randomly. Quote, "It was a fluke," unquote, said Nina. Quote, "I didn't say Smurfs have to be blue because that would work best," unquote. Additional design choices regarding the Smurfs included their round bodies and sunny disposition. Quote, "To draw a Smurf, you almost only need curves," unquote, said animator Philippe Capart. Quote, there are no angles at all. So we have something really round and friendly. Although the Smurfs share a majority of the same physical characteristics, they differ greatly in personality, so much so that this distinction has become a part of their individual namesake. It was something that Joseph Barbera kept in mind according to his memoir, My Life in Toons. Quote, "A big part of the Smurfs' charm and staying power is that while they look basically the same, and indeed are almost nondescript, They each have a unique personality that kids quickly recognize and identify with, like what wrote Barbera. Quote, making them all different colors would have given them nothing more than superficial identities. This is the red one. This is the red one. He's the green one. She's the pink one, which really would have been no identity at all. Making them all look pretty much alike forced us to develop characters that genuinely distinctive personalities. Well, that kind of that is kind of interesting. That's basically how it came off. So, um, let's see, and let's see if there's anything more here. All right, doesn't look like there's more here. So let's see if we can find another article because that one did run kind of quick. So nothing here. Let's see about bounding into comics. Actually, even before that, maybe I'll go over to Critical Blast, see if something came up there recently, but probably not, considering that there haven't been a whole lot of articles coming out of there of late. Yeah, it doesn't look like much there, so over to bounding into comics then. This one, let's see. This one seems interesting. Let's see. Okay, so let's see now. Cy Spurrier announced his early exit from, in smaller quotes, The Flash. Mark Waid to take over with new, in smaller quotes, impulse point story. Quote, if I kept going, I'd end up either resenting the work or worse, doing it on autopilot, unquote. Article by Spencer McCulley published earlier today. So let's see what's going on here. After 2 years guiding Wally West and his return to the identity, a growing sense of apathy towards the hero, and his Speed Force powered adventures has promoted DC writer Cy Spurrier to bring a voluntary but premature end to his current run on The Flash Volume 6. Spurrier, whose run with the Scarlet Speedster kicked off as part of the Dawn of DC publishing initiative, broke the news to Flash fans on July 14th via a lengthy blog post made to his personal website. Quote, the final issue of The Flash will be number 25, which drops in September, unquote, announced the writer. Rumor control, here are the facts. I made this decision alone, without pressure or incentive, for reasons I'll come to in a moment. Despite the creative number crunching of a few bad faith naysayers, Untold sales have been remarkably healthy. Against a backdrop of industry-wide alarm, we've enjoyed a far slower attrition than is standard, and on a few occasions have even bucked the trend by adding readers midway through our arcs. We're not topping the charts, that's true, but we're a long way from the Rancor pit trapdoor of financial cancellation, unquote. Turning to expand on the reason for his early exit, Spurrier explained, quote, part of the difficulty, skill, and joy of writing characters in a shared universe is finding that elemental thing, that core elegant quiddity that makes you feel the same thrill, the same devotion, and the most fervent fans have felt every new comic book day for decades. And yet it can't, in parentheses, or at least it shouldn't, on parentheses, be to simply keep on doing more of the same. Quote, that way lies stagnation, diminishing returns, the faint width of fan fiction. Instead, you have to capture the thing that most excites you and surrender to its ability to evolve. And then, after 5 or 6 or 12 issues, you have to do it again. And then again. Quote, candidly, I never expected to stay past 12 issues. I had some ideas for a second year, but never seriously expected them to get their chance. I'd taken a massive swing in my pitch from conventional spandex to unnerving existential horror. And although I knew it would be awesome, I didn't imagine it would outrun the standard expectation for a return to basics for very long. That old, inescapable gravity of the status quo, I was delightfully wrong about that. Let's see if anybody's here. Anybody's saying anything. Again, if you haven't already, you guys can help out by liking and sharing the stream. See if we can get some more friendly people to engage. Also, if anything here grabs your attention, feel free to comment and or ask questions. I'll try to answer the questions to the best of my ability. So, with that being said, then, quote, as I said before, part of the challenge of working with shared characters with all this rich history lies in consistently finding something fresh to say with each new arc. Something valuable. I started to feel it getting a little harder identifying a kernel of truth that made me personally passionate each time a new story was on the horizon. And whereas I think I could keep telling stories about Wally West and his family for another year or two, I began to wonder if I ought. It was taking too long to restring the bow after each shot. I started to suspect that if I kept going, I'd end up either resenting the work or worse, doing it on autopilot. Um, there are plenty of spectacularly successful, in parentheses, and often even quite good, parentheses, writers who are exceptional at, in smaller quotes, playing the hits. I am not one of them. Quote, I shall be very sad to leave the West family behind. Or perhaps more fittingly, given their skills, to be left behind by them. But I part from their company with a smile and a deep sense of pride, and I suspect that's all my writer can truly, that's all any writer can truly hope for when borrowing such precious toys, unquote. Shortly after Spurrier published his post, DC revealed that the writer's successor on the book would be none other than the Flash Volume 2 writer Mark Waid, who would be returning to the title with an impulse-centric tie-in story to the publisher's upcoming DC KO event. A, quote, knockdown, drag-out fight between all your favorite DC superheroes in a cosmic tournament to save the universe from Darkseid, unquote. Let's see, quote, Wally and Impulse race, unsmaller quote, reads the, or unquote, reads the official solicit to the Wade penned The Flash Volume 6, number 26. Quote, as the chaos around the DC universe erupts during DCKO, Impulse proposes a catastrophic reality reset. Impulse Point. A terrible move that could wipe out everything unless the Flash can catch up with him as they race through time. See, barring any unforeseen delays, the Flash, Volume 26, is set, volume number 26, volume 6, number 26, I think is what he meant to say. It's set to bolt onto shelves on October 22nd. However, it's presently unknown whether Waid will remain on the book past either issue 26 or its DC KO era. Alrighty then. So there we go with that. I think that's all the articles we're going to cover for tonight. So with that, let me just go ahead and clear this out. All right, so now what we'll move on to the wrestling wrap up, as we have some follow up for AEW on AEW Dynamite from last Saturday's All In pay per view. We'll also look ahead to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. Tonight's Impact, of course, being the go home Impact before the Slammiversary pay per view. Let me get to that. All right, first off, looking back to last night's Dynamite, as they were coming off of the events from All In. Opening match saw Don Callis Kyle Fletcher of the Don Callis family with Don Callis and Lance Archer in his corner, rebounding from his loss of the TNT title. In the four-way match to crown a new TNT championship after Adam Cole had to vacate it, defeating Mascara Dorada in 12 minutes 43 seconds. Then you saw the Don Callis family members of Hechicero and Josh Alexander teaming up with the Young Bucks, the former EVPs, Matt and Nicholas Jackson, to defeat Ring of Honor World Champion Bandito, Brody King, and the Jet Speed of Speedball Mike Bailey and Jet Kevin Knight. In a $100,000 four-way match, Thekla basically defeated Chris Statlander, Queen Aminata, and Willow Nightingale. The non-title match, Kazuchika Okada, AEW Unified Champion Kazuchika Okada with Don Callis in his corner, defeated Quintero. In the main event saw AEW World Champion Adam Page teaming with Mark Briscoe and 1/3 of the AEW World Trios Champions Powerhouse Hobbs to defeat the Death Riders of Claudio Castagnoli, John Moxley, and Wheeler Yuta with Marina Shafir in their corner. So that's all we got for that. I wasn't able to watch any of so I don't know what else happened. But AEW is starting their march towards their Forbidden Door pay-per-view next month. So I'm sure I did also see, though, in one of the headlines that apparently Kazuchika Okada confronted Swerve Strickland for basically beating the Young Bucks and therefore stripping them of their EVP titles. Anyways, now we'll look ahead now to tonight's Impact. On tonight's Impact here. All right. As of course, actually, I forgot to mention one other thing too, regarding to AEW's Dynamite last night, where they were, last night's Dynamite, which was being aired on TBS from the Byline Bank Aragon Ballroom in Chicago, Illinois. The Caliber, Taz, Tony Schiavone, and Don Callis on commentary. So that's all that happened there. Now, as I said, we get ready to move on to tonight's Impact. Tonight's Impact coming from the UPMC Event Center in Moon Township, Pennsylvania, with Matthew Ringwalt and Tom Hannafin on commentary. The opening match we'll see in a non-title match, X Division champion Moose will be taking on Sami Callihan. The other members of the system of Eddie Edwards, Brian Myers, and JDC will be taking on the Order of 4 trio of Mustafa Ali and the Great Hands of Jason Hotch and John Schuyler. Tessa Blanchard with Victoria Crawford in her corner will be taking on Danny Luna. And the main event, as set up on last week's show, and will be somewhat of a prelude to this Sunday's Slammiversary, we'll see Frankie Kazarian teaming with TNA World Champion Trick Williams to defend in a tag team match against Trick's opponents at Slammiversary of Joe Hendry and Mike Santana. Now, since we are talking a little bit about Slammiversary here, let's go ahead. Why don't we go ahead and go over the card for Slammiversary. We'll probably go over it one last time tomorrow as well. But this Sunday, Slammiversary, TNA Slammiversary 2025 will be taking place from Elmont, from the UBS Arena in Elmont, New York. It'll be airing on Thriller TV. Opening match has Tessa Blanchard taking on Indy Hartwell. In a match for the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions, the Elegance brand of Ash and Heather by Elegance, with the personal concierge in the corner, will be taking on former TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Champions Cassie Lee and Jesse McKay, the Inspiration. Mustafa Ali will be taking on Cedric Alexander after, of course, the other members of Order 4 betrayed Alexander after calling him to try to get through to Ali. Then in a four-way ladder match, the TNT World Tag Team titles will be on the line. The Nemeths, Ryan and Nick Nemeth, will be defending the titles against the Hardy Boys, Jeff and Matt Hardy, the Rascals, Trey Miguel and Zachary Wentz, and First Class of AJ Francis and Casey Navarro. Moose defends the X Division title against the youngest in charge, Leon Slater. Leon Slater seeks to become the youngest ever X Division champion this Sunday, eclipsing the Amazing Red's record. And a winner-take-all match for the TNA Knockouts and WWE NXT Women's Championship. JC Jane, the NXT Women's Championship champion, will be taking on Masha Slamovich, the TNA Knockout World Champion, in a winner-take-all match in which the winner will basically take home both titles. And then the three-way match, the main event, Trick Williams defends the TNA World title against Joe Hendry and Mike Santana. So let's see. So now let's go on to the Ring of Honor. Ring of Honor card for tonight. So coming up on Ring of Honor Honor Club tonight, on ROHWrestling.com with Caprice Coleman and Ian Riccaboni on the on commentary. The Spanish Announce Project Angelico will be taking on Hechicero from the Don Callis family, who will have, of course, Rocky Romero in his corner. Landis Jr., the former Ring of Honor World Television Champion, will be taking on Lee Johnson with Blake Fritz in his corner. Diamante looks to continue her winning ways after coming back and getting a win at Supercard of Honor, taking on Maya World. And then the main event, we'll see Jay Lethal taking on Rev Pro's Michael Oklu. Will have a mirror in his corner. So that's all I got on the wrestling wrap-up. I do need to step away from the computer for a moment. So I'll be right back. When I do get back, we'll go over the This Day in Each History segment. So I'm going to do now is, of course, let me remind myself where all that is. I'll be... So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92, 93, 94, 95, 96, 97, 98, 99, 100, 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, 107, 108, 109, 110, 111, 112, 113, 114, 115, 116, 117, 118, 119, 120, All right, I'm back. Sorry about that. Anyways, with all that being said, today is Thursday, July the 17th, 2025. So why don't we go ahead and take a look back at this day in each history? History! So, let's see. July 17, 1996, 2005, and 20, and 2010. All right. So, first off, we're going back to 1996, 29 years ago today. On this date, 29 years ago, back in 1996, here, the 725th issue of Action Comics went on sale on this date back in 1996. The story was titled Variations on a Scheme, written by David Michelin, with Tom W. Morgan doing the penciling, inking done by Dennis Roeder, Bill Oakley doing the lettering, and Glenn Whitmore doing the coloring. So, the 725th issue of Action Comics, Volume 1, went on sale on this date back in 1996, 29 years ago today. So, with that being said now, moving on to the next piece in each history, as we move ahead to the year 2005, as on this date in the year 2005, TNA would have its No Surrender pay-per-view on this date 20 years ago today, back in 2005. Let's see, it was held from the Universal Studio. It was held from the Universal Studios in Orlando, Florida. It was the actual first No Surrender event. The main event saw Raven retain the NWA World Heavyweight title over Abyss in a No Surrender dog collar match. Of course, this is at the time when TNA and NWA were still had a working agreement. It would be about a year later that they would part ways. Christopher Daniels retained the TNA X Division Championship over Petey Williams. AJ Styles would defeat Sean Waltman with Jerry Lynn as a special guest referee, as of course Jerry Lynn had, obviously had connections to both men at the time, and Sean Waltman from earlier in their career together. In a no disqualification tag team street fight, Kip James and Monty Brown defeated Three Live Crew's Conan and Ron Killings. In a six-man tag match, Team Canada of A1, Bobby Roode, and Eric Young defeated team of Lance Hoyt and the Naturals, Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, who of course had Jimmy Hart in their corner. In a Super X Cup qualifying match, Sanjay Dutt outlasted Elix Skipper, Mikey Batts, and Shark Boy to win the match. And then the opening match on the show saw Chris Harris and James Storm, America's Most Wanted, defeat Alex Shelley and Matt Bentley with Tracy in their corner. And of course, on the pre-show, Shocker defeated Gerald Clark. So that happened 20 years ago today. TNA's No Surrender was held. Now moving on to the next piece in each history as we move ahead to the year 2010, 15 years ago today. 15 years ago today, on this date, 15 years ago today, in the year 2010, Studio Ghibli's The Secret World of Arity, just simply known as Arity in Japan, premiered in Japanese theaters on this date back in 2010. So 15 years ago today, Arity, known in the States as The Secret World of Arity, premiered in Japanese television Japanese theaters on this date back in 2010, 15 years ago today, from Studio Ghibli. Let's see. Plot: a boy named Sho tells the story of the week in summer he spent at his mother's home with his maternal great aunt, Sadako, and the housemaid Haru. When Sho arrives, he gets a glimpse of Arity, a borrower girl, hiding in the plants. All right, so 15 years ago today, The Secret World of Arity premiered in Japanese theaters. And let's see now. Now, finally, on this date 5 years ago today, in the year 2020, on this date in the year 2020, oops. 2020. Cartoon Network's Mao Mao Heroes of Pure Heart completed its run on this date back in 2020. So 5 years ago today, Cartoon Network's Mao Mao Heroes of Pure Heart premiered on this date back in 2020. All right, so with that being said, hope everybody enjoyed the show tonight. Of course, we'll be back here with more Needs tomorrow, of course. Probably get caught up on, get ready for tomorrow night's SmackDown, look back to tonight's Impact and Ring of Honor shows. And then don't forget this Sunday I'll be joined by the Metal, as we will be taking a look back to comics that went on sale in June of 1940. From this week, we'll be focusing in on Dell Comics. We'll be looking at Crackerjack Comics number 25. So with that, I thank everybody for being here, and I hope to see everybody back here tomorrow. Bye.